Hi everyone, my name is Thomas Leahy, and I had the opportunity to check out the Korneff Audio Shure Level-Loc compressor plugin before it came out. I've been using it on a mix right now for the last couple months. It's landed on, I don't know, about a dozen or so of my tracks in this song. I'm going to show you 4 different instances of how I use it. First being the vocal bus, then the slide guitar that I'm working on, and then an Ebo pad guitar that's kind of like I kind of treat it like a synth almost, and as well as a drum bus. In all 4 of these instances, I'm only using like 50% of the plugin in parallel. So remember that you can do even more with this plugin. You can have it on, an individual track 100%, and this is your main compressor. I'm using it in this scenario as compression, but also as a texture. So check it out, see what we do. Some stuff gets pretty gnarly. All right, before I get going, let's just hear what it sounds like on the vocal bus.
Maybe I'll wake up again, or this life might be the end, floating on lines and sides of now and then, fighting ghosts both night and day, sliding slopes and sanity, trials of fire inside, disguised to deceive us, make it stop.
Yeah, so that's a little taste of it. So you get 3 different options on the Level-Loc here. You get Chad Blake's first unit, his second unit, and then Dan's. They all look a little different. They all sound a little different. But if you don't know who Chad Blake is, he is the mixing engineer for, most notably for me anyway, Arctic Monkeys. Obviously, if you are into Korneff audio plugins, you might know who Dan Korneff is, who worked on everything from Breaking Benjamin to Paramore, My Chemical Romance, Pierce the Veil. The track you're listening to right now, the song I'm mixing, is from my own band, Black Sheep Shepherds. It's for a song coming out next month called Hypnagogia. But Level-Loc specifically has been a huge help. A small disclaimer, I am using copious amounts of mix bus compression and saturation. It's going to an analog rig. If you hear things fluctuate as I hit stop and start, that's mainly due to that. I tried to do a fade in, a pre-fade coming in so that it's not so drastic for y'all. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Maybe I wake up again, or this life might be the end, floating on lines and sides of now and then, fighting ghosts both night and day, sliding slow.
Now let's try the different units.
Trials of fire inside, disguised to deceive us, make it stop, wake me up.
And so when I put it back in the mix, they're going through that compressor too, so you can hear that clamping down on it too. But
Maybe I'll wake up again, or this life.
all right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hear the different versions.
Floating on lines and sides of now and then.
Chad's first unit sounds a little more presenceful.
Sliding slopes.
Let's turn around and see what we can do with the release time and see if we can change anything. Yeah, that holds it down a lot longer. That doesn't really work for this. Let's try the output impedance real quick. That's going to give it kind of a boost in a compression sort of way. The low sounds better, in my opinion, anyway.
Fighting ghosts both night and day, sliding slopes and sanity, trials of fire inside.
Yeah, the settings I had started with, I kind of like. And also the input and the output knobs, what I'd call digital ones, have really no tone to them, but the output amplifier definitely does, and so does the input level. And so I think, obviously that's by design. And speaking of level and going in, this is kind of like a threshold, I guess you could say. It's basically where this unit starts to really clamp down. So yeah, that's pretty much it on the front. These filters, they have a nice tone to them. It's not just a really basic like fab filter, like as clean as you can. It's not like that. There's a little bit of a bump, but I like to pull out a little bit of the lows beforehand. And the reason for that is because we're compressing so heavily, it can lift some grossness out of a track if you're not careful. I just have a little bit just for safety's sake. I would probably tweak this more as we get closer to final mix down, but let's mess with it and see what happens here. Oh, and then the post filter, obviously, that's a really nice feature here too. And remember, as we're listening, this is dry and wet here. I'm only doing 50%, so if we were doing this on an individual track, it would be more drastic with 100%.
Maybe I'll wake up again, or this life might be.
You can see how it kind of fills in a little bit. Yeah, I kind of actually like it a little bit hotter. I mean, not hotter, but that's cool. And then post filter, that's kind of where I get started in the 80s for vocals typically, for a final EQ. Yeah, I like that right there. And now, you obviously make it really drastic on the top end. And now when you have a compressor, with a pre-filter, you're bringing all that high end back. So it's just kind of like seeing how the compressor's going to react to the thing. With that in the sidechain EQ, you can really do some EQ moves. See that? It's reacting less to 6.6K. Letting it through, giving it some presence boost. And I do that sometimes. It just depends on, the song. Maybe I'll wake up again, or this life. That sounds cool too. Floating on lines inside now and then. Fighting course both night and day. Sliding slopes and sanity. That's pretty cool. And now the filter, see that, letting all that S in. It just depends on what you're going for. But this is kind of a magic box. It's pretty incredible. And then if we go into the back here, once again, we want to add some distortion. That's where this is. You can hear it coming in. That's too much, obviously. But a little bit of texture's not bad. Let's go from 9 and go. Yeah. Now if you want to hear it on and off, basically just go to the outlet. So do it again here. Maybe I'll wake up again, or this life might be. Just gives it a little more growl. And you can, what's cool about this plugin is you can kind of control the growl. You can figure out, where in the spectrum you're trying to hit the unit and mold it. Same with the impedance and all that. I really think that these are really cool tools, and they're not tools where it's like I don't really need to know what I'm doing. If I had this hardware unit here, I wouldn't know to open it up and tweak these things. It's kind of cool. It's cooler to have this than the real thing, I think, in the sense that you can have like a dozen of them on a song. But also, these things are easily accessible. You get the filters and all that stuff. So, okay, so let's get to the slide. So, not going to lie, there's quite a few things on this other than this compressor. And I'm going to bypass what this thing's doing by itself. So, actually, let's let it play as it was. Alright, so we know what we're listening for, right? Okay, so the thing about this slide is it needs to cut. It also needs to not get in the way of the rest of the instruments because it's going to stay playing after that. That's why I lower the volume with a vocal. And I've only got this on 41% because, like I said, I'm doing a bunch of other things. So let's hit play and hit bypass and see what happens. Oh, and by the way, this one's Dan's unit. Again, it just kind of depends on what things sound like and how it hits your ear. Yeah, and so when I was working on this before, I had made the sidechain EQ not want, don't mess with the low end, like don't let it trigger your compression. Kind of lifts it up a little bit. And then we can do the same thing with the post filter. We can kind of lifts it up off the floor a little. Got it at 4x oversampling just to make sure that I'm not getting any extra noise because this thing's already a noisy track. And we're adding a little bit of the battery supply right now, a little bit of that grit, just a small amount. I have another setting. It's called Smelly Slide to get that kind of germanium farty thing out, which this thing does, by the way. We're gonna do that right now. So let's just solo the guitar out real quick. So you also have to kind of throw a hotter signal into it a bit too to get this. There we go. Let's just see what happens in the mix. That's pretty intense, but let's see what happens. That's actually pretty cool. Pull it back. Alright, well that does work again. It's cool. Creates more of a texture than what I had originally had prior to this video, so you got to see some actual mixing there. That's pretty cool. You know what I mean? Like, look at what I did with quote-unquote a compressor plugin right there. Like, I really sculpted what that thing did. Subtly and unsubtly, it had a lot of different variations there. Okay, so that's done, I would say, for now. I'm not going to mess with that anymore. I kind of want to move on to the Ebo Guitar. Now, I do have quite a bit of other stuff on here, including a phaser prior and a pan, like an auto panner after, but then also another Korneff audio plugin, the L1 limiter. So that's pretty cool. Got that set up right there for catching stray peaks because I am doing quite a bit of fluctuation on the spectrum. This thing is to help clamp it down. Okay, so I've only got 38% on this. I'm not, going crazy. It's really just to kind of pocket it as a pad. I'm doing, a pretty moderate amount here, a good amount in the input, and then I'm also using the output amplifier, which has that texture like I was talking about. I'm also using the filters a lot more on this. I'm not sure why, other than it just sounded good, but I am trying to make this compressor really react to a very specific thing, and I'm using it almost as kind of an EQ saturator rather than an actual compressor. And then again, it's only at 38%, so it's only doing a little more than a third of the signal. I am pulling it back. I don't know why in the mix, and it's on this setting. Let's see what's going on back here. Pretty standard on this. Using those settings like I normally do. I do have it at no oversampling. I typically go through the different options up until around 8 or 16. If it's I don't typically do those because that kind of also eats up CPU. On a guitar track, sometimes 4x will do a little bit better at the top end. Same with the vocal. It just depends. And sometimes it sounds better when it's a little bit more, just where it was. Without further ado, the ending. We're listening to this right here, by the way. This is without it. And remember, I have this mix bus compressor too going on right now. let's put it in the mix and see what happens. I'm going to lift it up just a little bit so we can hear it over the... Oh, I guess I can't do that. It's a song. There we go. Yeah, I'm sure you can hear the texture it's adding to it. I'm kind of sitting that mid-range up. Now it's off. Kind of in the mix, you know. And then this sticks that frequency back up. And so I'm gonna pull this back down now because it was way too hot. Alright, there we go. I got it back to where I was. But what I wanted to really show you is that you can use this as an EQ, so to speak, like a, you know, if you wanted to pin a frequency up to the top of the mix as you're at the very final part of mix down, you're like, man, that bass guitar is just not cutting. Man, that, you know, in this case, a pad isn't cutting through the mix. Use the sidechain EQ, mess around with, you know, which one reacts the best to, you know, the different units, and really pin up that one frequency that you're wanting, or the opposite. You can have it, if you add a ton of gain to that section, it will trigger that compressor at that spot. So for instance, I've actually used this as a de-esser once or twice, kind of more in that like aggressive, like, you know, holding that top end crunchy kind of way. It can do that too, that, you know, in conjunction with the back here with the battery. If you learn this thing, it's just like anything else. These are tools in our toolbox, but this one specifically, this unit, man, it's really cool. And so on my drum bus, let's just listen, and I'm gonna hit play here. Sad face, happy face. So as you can see, this thing also sounds great on drums. Head to korneffaudio.com to check out Level-Loc and all of the other cool plugins that Dan has to offer. Hit subscribe if you like this and want to see more. Cheers.